All right, what's up, homies? Today is February the 17th. It is Monday, a couple hours into the New York session. You know what time it is. Let's do the market outlook and plans for the week ahead. All right, so let's get into some macro yap. Macro yap is pretty straightforward. There has been no major changes in the higher time frame plan. I don't really see any reason to be macro bearish on Bitcoin. So I'm still very, very bullish across the board on Bitcoin for higher time frame. The key talking points for us right now are going to be like 103K resistance and, call it 93, 92K or whatever. For the meantime, we just expect that Bitcoin is going to continue to oscillate around in there. I've got some more detail-oriented plans for medium time frame we'll cover here in a minute. Yo, guys, hit that like and subscribe button for me. Appreciate it. That's pretty much where we're at, right? On macro, there's no reason to change anything. Being, a risk taker or expecting us to have momentum anytime soon is not really worth it, obviously. So definitely advocating for playing defense and for, leaning more towards a reversion mindset with the market. But just major emphasis on defense for macro right now before I'm still super confident that Bitcoin's going to trade higher, right? Like Bitcoin trading to 120K, 150K this year seems very, very reasonable, right? Is the aggregate of the market going to, perform? Probably not, but we'll talk about that in the alt section. Closing thoughts for the macro conversation are going to be around the paradigm shift argument. So I think it's pretty clear. It's been becoming increasingly more and more clear over the past, 2 months in particular, but realistically we could call it, maybe even the last 6 months plus, that I think that we're probably on the precipice of an actual paradigm shift where we're going to move away from the meme coin degeneracy stuff, because sentiment, as you guys are aware, is, basically at peak lows. The way that I'm viewing it is that you want to view sentiment through the lens of how high price is, right? Low price sentiment is not equally weighted to high price sentiment, right? Bitcoin at 100K sentiment versus, 20K sentiment. You need to pay attention to the pricing. And from a pricing standpoint, with Bitcoin being at 95K, it's got to be the worst sentiment I've ever seen in the space, I think. And I was a little bit detached this weekend, focused on life and whatnot, but I obviously know everything that's been going on. I'm a crypto person. I'm locked in still. So the argument that I want to make here is that, and I've been already kind of sharing this a little bit here and there. I think that we're actually going to see that like utility shift argument where we go towards something that actually has a purpose as opposed to just complete financial nihilism. We've seen this in the past with 2020 specifically. My first really successful cycle in crypto was DeFi led, right? DeFi came out and it was like, wow, DeFi actually works. I can go put money in it. And yeah, there was a lot of DeFi scams and there was a lot of get rich shit going on with DeFi, but also there was underlying real protocols that still exist today. Let's go ahead and move on. Medium time frame is a really important conversation today. So first things first is, if you know how to read my charts, you instantly know what I'm thinking. Like, it does not look good medium time frame, right? There's no argument for taking risk right now. So the first argument for taking risk is going to be 98K. So if we get above this region, which is, lots of confluence, right? It's going to be the quarterly rolling and it's going to be all the anchor highs, right? So if we can get above 98K, or it's even just simple support and resistance, however the fuck you want to view it. If we can get above that, that's the first line in the sand argument for bulls. The next is going to be basically like 101 or 102K and then 106K. These are the same kind of levels. This value area high level has shifted down since I originally talked about it. It's about $500 down from when I originally mentioned it. But these are the risk on arguments, right? Until you either see prices go lower or start to reclaim one of these, being risk on in this market is just completely unjustifiable from my systemization. So the flip side of these kind of reclaim levels is the trade lower argument. So basically, it does make some sense to be expecting anywhere from 92 all the way down to maybe 88 as a potential bid zone. What this is going to represent is it's either going to represent a macro swing point zone or B, a medium time frame reversion standpoint. Either way, I think this is a key area to pay attention to. Everyone's going to be watching it, so either maybe it's a little more shallow or maybe it's a little deeper. Maybe it comes through really quickly. It's not going to make it easy for everyone to catch this just because it is a little bit obvious. But I think that worst case scenario, we trade into here and get a dead cat bounce, which would be a good tradable moment, right? And then potentially a moment to reassess and go back to being defensive after the bounce. Alternatively, there is even the theoretical scenario where this is a macro swing long territory where, you know, we're buying here to trade up to 120K or something. If I was to spit probabilities out, I would say that that's pretty low probability, that the dead cat's the much more likely setup that we could take. But either way, there's a long setup that is going to be coming here very soon, in my opinion. The way they react down there is going to be important, right? So for, you know, everybody in the group, you guys should be familiar with the kind of key points that I'm looking for from liquidity and flows, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go ahead and get into a little bit of altcoin yap. So, you know, first thing that we'll maybe talk about, it's almost hilarious that the move already retraced, but, you know, everybody's gonna, every time that ETH has a day where it does well, everybody immediately rushes to say ETH is the savior of the market. It's time to pivot from, you know, hype and Solana are dead, it's time for ETH or whatever, right? But every time that happens, you know, for years now, it's not worked, right? So eventually ETH is gonna have its moment, but it's gonna have its moment once everybody just has completely given up on that dream. So, you know, basically before anybody asks, I'm not really, you know, not sold on the ETH narrative or anything. I know a lot of people were yapping about that on Twitter. Solana, you know, was one of my best trades this cycle. You know, you look at this chart and it just looks insane. The macro chart doesn't look bad to me, right? But any of the kind of shorter picture, you know, there's not really that much of an argument for holding excess risk on this stuff. I never really have intentions of not owning some Solana. Just in the same way that I'll never, you know, not own a Bitcoin or whatever, right? But, you know, holding more Solana than I need to these days, not justifiable, right? Especially because I kind of think that with how fucked everything is right now, that there's a reasonable chance I'm just going to get to buy shit a lot lower. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for Solana. Hype, we'll cover hype really quickly. So I like the way that the hype chart is starting to round out. The fact that this thing is holding up in the face of such a, you know, brutal market regime right now, this is pretty bullish, right? I really would place a huge emphasis on everybody pay attention very closely to Bitcoin. Bitcoin looks a little bit rough right now, so if Bitcoin looks rough, you know, because I think Bitcoin could easily trade from 95 down to, you know, 93, 92, well, you obviously know that alts are going to get smacked in that process. Eventually, we're going to have a true kind of shift in the market, and there's going to be a revitalization of alts, guys. Like, don't get it twisted to where we think that alts are never going to do well again. This cycle has absolutely just decimated everybody who had hopes of buying random altcoins and having them do well for them, right? You had pockets of outperformance, and then you had a few moments where all boats rose, but they immediately retraced, right? So this has been a brutal cycle for the more, you know, for the less experienced trader. Been wild to watch, but I have the absolute confidence though that we'll see all these things come back. Or let me rephrase that: we're not going to see all, like, specifically these coins coming back. You know, we don't care about that. But the idea that the altcoin market in general comes back and has, you know, moments in the sun, like, that's a fucking no-brainer. I feel max confidence that we'll have altcoin games again. It's just not a smart gamble to bet on this being the low, right? Let's wait for it to either trade lower and wash people out, or wait for it to prove strength with reclaims and be patient, right? If you're struggling in these do-nothing moments, please go into my generalized section for psychology and watch the do-nothing psychology video. I made that in the summertime range. And it's one of the most important skill sets that we can have as traders. We have moments where it's our time to shine, and this is not it. And in these moments when it's not our time to shine, keeping your mental health intact and not losing your sanity, keeping your capital intact and not bleeding out, right? These are the things that matter to us, and that's literally an edge to be able to not lose money and to survive and to stay driven, right? I mean, these are the moments where people are going to lose their motivation and drive to even work, right? So figure out a way to stay moving forward, and just don't lose your money right now. And you know, I don't have a crystal ball to know when it's going to happen, but I just, like I've said for a couple of years now, like, I still have that gut feeling we're trading higher. If I'm wrong on that, we'll have to readjust, but thus far there's no reason to think that I'm wrong on that. So I'll digress from the yaps, but good luck out there, and I'll chat with you soon. Cheers.